This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into. From chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredelioQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.
Content warning: this episode contains discussion of the brutal murder of 2 girls.
So I want to start off by saying that we actually hesitated before doing this episode because I think whenever we release an episode on any subject whatsoever, there is an implicit message from us to you that we think this is worth your time. You know, maybe you don't agree with us. Maybe you don't want to hear about the assassination of President Garfield, but we can say at the very least, we think it's interesting and worth your time. And what we're going to be discussing today is something that is not interesting and is not worth your time.
You know, I love this. In our Facebook group, which has so many wonderful people, somebody posted, kind of was a meme a few years ago of actor Ben Affleck standing in a doorway with a cigarette looking exhausted and irritated. And they said, this is what Anya and Kevin are right now. And yes, that is how we are right now. That was very disturbingly accurate because we're kind of caught in this conundrum of frankly, not really wanting to cover things that we think are stupid and pointless. But at the same time, it feels on some level like by not explaining things, we're almost ceding the ground to people who are just going to lie or obfuscate or whatnot. So we've tried to work this out where we feel good about covering things like this going forward because it's not going to be the last time, I'm sure. And here's what we've worked out. Because here's the thing. Listen, I'm not a lawyer. So many of our listeners are lawyers. Many are not. And I think it's one thing for, us to be like, it's not worth your time. But if we don't explain that, a lot of people might be like, but I don't understand. And, we don't want to just abandon the case. I mean, frankly, sometimes the thing that this reminds me of the most, sometimes in terms of like the situation we found ourselves in with this case, for some reason, I ended up watching a lot of Looney Tunes shorts as a child. I had them on VHS tape. And there's this one called Buccaneer Bunny, where Bugs Bunny is up against Yosemite Sam, who is a pirate for some reason in this one. And they're on the ship, and Bugs keeps on lighting a match and throwing it into the powder room of the ship with all this gunpowder so it explodes. And Yosemite Sam keeps running down the stairs to go get the lit match so that the ship doesn't explode. And the one time he doesn't immediately do that, he's kind of like sweating and looking at it. And then the second he starts to run for it, like it blows up. And like sometimes I feel like that with this case, where I feel like we're constantly trying to debunk misinformation, talk about sort of pointless legal filings that have no merit. And it's just, I don't feel like that's necessarily always the best use of our time. But then again, when we don't do it, everything seems to blow up. So I guess that's where we are. So here's the system.
Yeah, I was struck that a number of outlets and other people seem to take this particular matter we're going to be discussing a lot more seriously than I thought it merited.
Yeah. So it's like, we don't go for the lit match and the powder room explodes. So let's talk about what we're going to do. The worst thing, I think, one of the worst things you can do to somebody is waste their time. And we really try not to waste your time. Your time is valuable. You could be going out and listening to anything else. You could be hanging out with your family or friends. You could be going to the gym. I mean, and you can do that and listen to podcasts. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you could be doing anything else. So we think of your time as valuable. So when we get a Delphi filing that we don't feel is important, we are going to say that up front. And at that point, we would say that you can just bounce, you can skip it, you're not going to miss much, it doesn't matter. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. This subject we're discussing today is not important. We always enjoy your company. Love to have you hang out with us. But if you were to turn off now and go out and do anything else,
take a walk. Yeah, you can hang out if you want to hear two very exasperated people descending into, a group madness. Please stick around. But if you only want to get the big updates, skip this one. And we will be labeling every Delphi episode going forward, whether it's skippable or not, when it comes to these filings, at least. Because again, we don't want to waste your time. Now, I want to say, so we'll be saying at the top of these episodes whether we think it's important or not important. If we say something is important, that doesn't mean we agree with it. That doesn't mean it's like a momentous shift in the case. That doesn't even mean it's a big development. It just means it reaches the normal threshold of something we would have covered anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas when we're covering something that we think is not important, that means we're basically in combating misinformation and stupid speculation mode, and it's more of a defensive posture. So hopefully that clears things up. We're really trying here to kind of do the right thing by the case while also not wasting your time. So hopefully this at least gives everyone the option of saying, okay, I don't need to listen to the unimportant episodes. I'll tune back into the important ones. And for people who want that extra clarity or want to hear us get very annoyed, you can stick around and enjoy yourselves. So that's what we're doing.
And maybe go back and give that Assassination of Garfield episode a listen.
Okay.
I'm still pitching for that one because I think that episode is more interesting than what we're about to talk about, just to be honest.
Yeah, but, I also understand it that people, I want people to have the tools and the information and whatnot that they can use when they are faced against kind of a mountain of nonsense. And so I don't want to deprive people of that while also not necessarily giving it too much importance. Hopefully everyone understands. But we're trying our best here. We're fighting for our lives out here, people. Shall we get started?
Yeah.
My name is Anya Kane. I'm a journalist.
And I'm Kevin Greenlee. I'm an attorney.
And this is The Murder Sheet.
We're a true crime podcast focused on original reporting, interviews, and deep dives into murder cases. We're The Murder Sheet.
And this is the Delphi murders. The defense's Ricci Davis Gambit.
So before we actually get to the Ricci Davis portion of the program, the defense did another filing. And so as long as we're here, we may as well discuss that too. And I'm referring to the defendant's verified motion to strike the state's response to motion to correct error. You will recall that the defense filed a motion in which they said, there was these errors in the trial. And then Prosecutor McClellan responded to that, and now they are responding to that response and basically saying just throw his response out. And for me, I think some of the most important things in their original motion were they said, for instance, that Richard Allen had a defense attorney representing him shortly after his arrest, and that this defense attorney was ostensibly intending to represent him throughout the rest of the proceedings, and that this defense attorney was not a part of the safekeeping motion and the decisions around the safekeeping motion. And that's basically the decision to send Mr. Allen to the Department of Corrections. And so what was interesting to me about this is, first of all, that is an allegation they made that they literally supplied no evidence to support.
Oh, well, they had some weak tea Kathy Allen affidavit saying, when they have their client there who could presumably confirm or deny this. So,
Well, yeah, if, for instance, I hired someone to cut my front lawn, you could then say, Kevin, did you hire this person to cut your front lawn? And I could say yes. Or you could go out and let's say you have the name of the person I said I hired. You could also ask him. They did not ask the lawyer for a statement.
Well, they didn't get, we don't know if they asked, but they didn't get one.
They didn't get one. They did not get a statement from the lawyer saying it was his intention to represent Richard Allen in this. They did not ask Richard Allen if it was his understanding that this man represented him. All they had was the equivalent if you could ask Anya and say, Anya, what do you think Kevin hired this guy for? It's tangential. They had the ability to ask their client whether or not this man represented him. They had the ability to ask this attorney whether or not he represented Richard Allen. So then in the response from Mr. McClellan, he pointed out that he received an email from the attorney in which the attorney said, I'm not representing him. So in this reply, basically, there's no response to that. They focus instead on the issue of whether or not the attorney filed an appearance in the case. And well, even if he didn't file an appearance, who knows? Maybe he still represented him. But that's not the issue. The issue is, did he in fact represent him? And also, I would wonder if this person did in fact represent him and court proceedings were going on without him being notified of said court proceedings. I would imagine that the attorney would have made his displeasure known years ago.
Maybe he's part of the whole conspiracy, Kevin. Ever consider that?
And
checkmate.
And then the other big issue was that there is this video of a white van, probably Brad Weber's white van, going down the road to his house that was taken on the afternoon of the killings. And McClellan basically said, we don't know what time this video was taken. And because we don't know exactly what time it was taken, at best, it's impeachable evidence. It's not really evidence that goes to the heart of whatever.
And they had this video, and they could have used it at trial to impeach
that's not
Brad
even,
Weber.
That's not even the issue. Right? The issue is we don't know what time it was shot at.
Right.
And there's nothing in this document, their verified motion to strike, which responds to that and establishes any criteria for whether or not we know what time that video was taken.
Which would have been the important thing to do if we're to take this seriously.
Those were the things that I thought were most important to respond to, and I didn't see them.
Yeah. I don't think it's, I don't think it's worth going through this whole thing point by point. I think this team, again, has a history of filing things that turn out not to be true. And a lot of this struck me as carefully worded press release type stuff. Stuff that's going to really interest the folks in the media and, their, internet peanut gallery online. But I don't feel like it's relevant or just the way this was written was just bizarre to me.
Yes, they also threw in, let me say this. They got some grief from people like us, and also they got some grief in McClellan's response for the fact that they posted a video clip which they said was evidence, highly relevant evidence. They posted that to YouTube, which to me, that kind of gives the whole game away. They're not really interested in appealing to the judge or to anybody within the system. They want their YouTube fans to be able to see all of this. And so by putting it on YouTube, they were trying to do an end run around the system and try to make that video available to their fans online. And they say, no, I'm reading now. That web link was provided for ease of viewing by the parties in the court. And with all due respect, does anyone believe that?
No, oh my God.
They put the YouTube link in the filing so their fans could read it, not so that Judge Gold would be able to access it.
I just think it's embarrassing, the level of connection between, it's like they're like some true crime equivalent of like a teacher who wants to look cool in front of the students, so like kind of like tries to act almost like a student. It's like you shouldn't be even like that shouldn't even be on your radar. I don't even know why this is hard. Like like just ignore these people. Like why are you trying to cater to them at all times? Why are you trying to give Michael Osbrook a little YouTube boost? It's embarrassing. All of these people should be embarrassed. We're in the new media. We have a podcast. We feel mixed feelings about new media. I think there's some great podcasts, some great YouTube creators. Most of it, I think, is garbage and a waste of time, if I'm being honest. But, like, that's my opinion being in this space. I can't fathom that actual attorneys in a high-profile case have been citing YouTubers in filings, have been palling around with YouTubers in court, have been doing stuff like this. It's just like, I don't know. Are they trying to look cool for the kids or something? What's next? Are we going to see Baldwin and Rosie's try to start a TikTok dance trend? What is next?
All I have to say is it's obviously been their strategy to cater to the fringes of YouTube. And I would ask, how's that worked out for you guys? I don't think it's worked out that well. They picked a frankly ridiculous defense of Odinism. They catered to this fringe. They lost their case badly, and their client got the absolute maximum term.
Stay winning.
I don't think their strategy has worked.
No.
So I was at a loss as to why they pursued it, and I'm at a loss as to why they are continuing it.
I am a loss as to why they are still here. If you have a coach lead a football team to a devastating series of losses and, just disgrace, frankly, usually that coach is fired and a new coach is brought on to handle things and try to get things back and running. That's what I would expect. No, that's what you would expect even in cases where defense attorneys lose, but they didn't, you win and then the case is over because you won. Or, there's a mistrial, in which case you probably get a second shot at it. Or you lose, even if you lose gracefully, even if you lose and you did a really good job and you came really close, normally that's when the appeals team steps in and they get to work and they're doing their thing. Why are these people still here if not to continue to try to eke out every single little bit of attention from this thing as possible? And why would you want the losers continuing to try to steer the ship here? I just don't even understand it.
I also wanted to point out another aspect of this filing that jumped out at me. You may remember that after the sentencing, or around the time of the sentencing, McClelland filed a motion saying, hey, we have certain things in the case, like, the mental health records of Richard Allen and some crime scene photographs that should not be made available to the public. And hey, the defense obviously has mishandled this material in the past because they allowed some crime scene pictures to get out. Ordinarily, a lot of this evidence would become public, but he filed in this motion. He said, let's keep these photographs sealed so that the public can't access them. So then in his response to some, frankly, false claims made by the defense in their original filings, he disproved the claims by including a picture, or I believe two pictures actually.
I think it was several.
Of the phone, of Libby's phone as it appeared at the crime scene. And so now they are trying to claim in this particular filing that by doing that, he somehow broke the order that the judge made to keep those documents, those photos, sealed from the public. And so because of that, he should be held in contempt. And that's dumb. That's dumb.
I wrote down dumb as my note there.
When you seal something, you're controlling the ability of the public to access it. His use of those photos was not gratuitous. It did not include any bodies or anything of that nature. It was meant to disprove a dubious and false assertion made by the defense and their witnesses in their filing. There was nothing wrong with that. It's what it tells you is they're kind of smarting from the fact that they messed up. They messed up when they let those pictures get out. And they're smarting from that. They're smarting that that McClelland asked them to be held in contempt. So they're saying, well, he asked us to be held in contempt. We want him to be held in contempt.
There's something so childish about their interactions with McClelland in some of these filings. There's something so childish. Like, remember the ding dong filing? Oh, the judge called McClelland a ding dong, but she never called us a ding dong. It's like little boys whining. Like half of this is the kind of underlying in legal filings, the underlying vibe of some of this stuff. It's like, oh, well, he did it too. And oh, well, he's not in trouble. You didn't get a timeout. And I did. And it's like, maybe if they wanted to have come across better from their disastrous leak, which, to be clear, led directly to photos of dead children existing on the internet right now. That is their fault. That is something they allowed to happen.
They are entirely responsible for the fact that crime scene pictures of these two dead girls are all over the internet. And so for the rest of their lives, when relatives of these victims turn on their computers, there is a chance that they might come across these pictures.
I don't feel...
They failed in their basic responsibility to keep those materials private.
I don't feel, personally, and listen, mistakes can happen. I don't feel that in their dealings with the public, in their public statements since trial, in their public statements in the pretrial phase, I don't feel like there's really been any accountability from them on this. I hear Brad Rosie saying things like, it doesn't matter. I hear people who are basically acting as their spokespeople go online and go on TV and say, it's just a drip. It doesn't matter. And I hear, a lot about forgiving Mitch Westerman, the guy who did this, or is alleged to have done it.
Yeah, it is alleged that Mitch Westerman did this acting alone, although he's also been described as a valued confidant. So
so which is it? So,
but they immediately have forgiven him for that.
Yeah, so that's all well and good for them. But again, I don't. If they wanted to perhaps take some of the heat off of themselves, I would have expected a little bit more contrition. I certainly would have, I think it would have been fine if they wanted to argue, listen, we're really sorry about this. We take accountability. We don't think we should be removed. We don't think it rises to that level. That's fine. That's an argument I could understand making. But they've just been dismissive and, frankly, I would argue cruel given what has happened. So I think the fact that they're still basically trying to relitigate that, again, is more about public perceptions, because I think they realize that a huge segment of the public is completely disgusted with them based on that alone.
Yes.
Based on what they allowed to happen and then what they continued to try to justify up until recently. And I'm sure we'll continue trying to justify and continue trying to smear Nicholas McClelland, who, again, did not do that and is not responsible for any of that and there's no moral equivalency here. They're being intellectually dishonest because they are so obsessed, I think, with public opinion that, again, this is an important thing in their minds to relitigate, even though none of this even has anything to do with that. We're not even talking about the leak here. They're continuously bringing it up to try to be like, see, we're not so bad. They did it too.
And I also want to make this point. In their filing, they said, oh, the phone was not dirty. It was not wet. And so McClelland produced a photo that proved the phone was dirty and the phone was wet. And they are not saying, oh, those photos were inaccurate or doctored in any way. So what is their contention? That if they make a false assertion, McClelland should not have the right to produce photographic evidence that proves them to be liars?
Well, Kevin, he's not a phone expert, So, I mean, I know we all saw the phone covered in, refuse and leaves and droplets of moisture. But I mean, does he really know that? I mean, it's basically don't trust your lying eyes here. He what?
Maybe I misspoke and went too far when I said they are liars. But clearly what they put in that filing about the condition of the phone was not accurate.
I mean, I don't know. There's an awful lot of things that turn out not to be true in these filings. So I don't know.
Speaking of that, did you want to move on to Ricky Davis, or there's more stuff you wanted to say about this filing?
I think it's very interesting given the amount of spelling errors that they've had in their filings that they're dunking on McClelland and some of this for misspelling impeachable. Listen, you and I have fun with typos, but we're podcasters. We're not making a legal filing before a judge. So the fact that they're doing that, it's just, there's something so petty and weird about this. And it's just like, I don't know. I think I've heard people say, well, maybe they're trying to put some of this in to get it in the record. But again, they had their shot to perform well in this case. They didn't. And I just want to emphasize for people who might be wondering, this is not the appeal. The appeal is going to be done by different attorneys. That's down the line. So we'll be assessing that when it comes out separately. But none of this is an appeal. This is, this is what it is. So let's move on.
So this is the defendant's verified motion to strike the state's response to, pardon me.
No, sorry. I think I put the wrong thing down there. This should be the defendant's verified motion to preserve and produce specific evidence.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
the first thing.
Well, let's explain who Ricci Davis is first. Otherwise, people are going to be like, what? Ricci Davis is a man who was convicted on drug charges and has a history, kind of a long criminal history, including things like forgery. So crimes where he is lying, theft, I believe. So this is a guy who's at the Newcastle Correctional Facility. He's inserted himself into this case by claiming to have information on all sorts of things connected to Delphi. And in true crime, we all know that when someone does that, that's obviously incredibly believable and should be taken very seriously.
Anya, of course, is being sarcastic, is her want.
Thank you for narrating that.
Yeah, well, I just want to make it clear. Mr. Davis, as it has come out that Mr. Davis at one point reported that Ron Logan made a confession to him that Mr. Logan was involved in the murders, and Mr. Davis provided some details of said confession, which were at best wildly inaccurate. Can you remind me what some of those details were?
I believe one detail was that Liberty was killed in the clearing where they were found, but Abigail was abducted from that scene and then brought back and dumped later or killed later, which doesn't make any sense. And that the phone battery was removed from Liberty's phone, and there was something about burning clothes.
So there were a number of details that Mr. Davis claims that Mr. Logan allegedly told him about the crime, which were completely inaccurate. And then furthermore, Mr. Davis was given a polygraph test, which he failed completely. So when you have someone saying, I heard this bit of information, and that information, from other sources, is inaccurate, and furthermore, that the person who is making this claim failed a lie detector, you would be pretty safe to assume that the information he is trying to peddle is wrong.
I would imagine that in a case as high profile as this, police probably received quite a lot of wrongful confessions or people tipping in other people who got details wrong. Like, I shot the girls or I strangled them or something. And then you can rule that out because no, that's not what happened. That didn't match the scene. So Ricci Davis is very clearly, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of anyone who's freaking paying attention to this thing, not a credible person.
I will go so far to say he's a liar. The story he tells is not credible.
Oh, you don't think he just wants to help the families? Aw.
So that's who Ricci Davis is. In this filing, former defense attorney Andrew Baldwin, I guess he's re-entered the case.
I guess current for. Remember there was like two sets of defense attorneys in this case at one point, and then defense attorneys for the defense attorneys. It's like Inception with defense attorneys.
Andrew Baldwin says on February 12, 2025, a little less than 1 week ago as we record, Mr. Baldwin went to the Newcastle Correctional Facility where Mr. Davis is incarcerated and met with him. And at that time, Davis says Davis supposedly told Baldwin that Logan confessed to him numerous times and indicated that he had committed the crime with two other people, and that Logan had provided certain details of the crime that only the actual killer would know. And so,
well, by that, by provided certain details of the crime that only the actual killer would know, I guess he meant got a bunch of details completely wrong that did not fit the facts of the case.
yes, and I would be curious, what are these details, and how would Ricci Davis be in a position to know whether or not these details that only the killer would know are accurate or not?
Sometimes I feel like I've got one of those faces where people just start opening, like telling me stuff sometimes, like just not even in interviews, just in life. Like people are just telling me stuff. And Ricci Davis must be that to the Newcastle Correctional Facility, because apparently everybody, and we're going to get to this later, but everyone's just telling him their darkest secrets, and he's really in the mix here. So interesting.
But again, how does Ricci Davis know whether these details that only the killer would know are accurate or not?
Well, maybe that's Baldwin's editorializing.
Then why aren't these details provided to the court?
I don't know. Maybe it would make people take the filing less seriously.
So then Mr. Davis further informed Mr. Baldwin that he also got to know Kagan Klein, as Anya alluded to, and that Kagan Klein started to get very friendly with Mr. Davis. And what happened?
Sorry, I can't help but laugh. It's just that this guy is pretending like he's the Forrest Gump of this case, where he's running into every high profile figure and having some meaningful interaction with them. So he says that in March 2024, he's in the same area of Newcastle as Kagan Klein. Somehow Klein learns that Davis talked to Logan, and then starts basically interrogating Davis about his talk with Logan, saying, "Oh, did he mention me? Did he mention me?" And so intrepid inmate/sleuth Ricci Davis pieces together the clues and thinks to himself, this Klein fella may know more than he's saying. I'll try to get to the bottom of this one. And then very conveniently, Klein also corroborated details to Davis.
That came from Logan.
That came from Logan. Again,
supposedly.
This is the guy who described the crimes completely wrong. But Klein also very helpfully absolved Richard Allen of being involved, saying no, he wasn't one of the guys. It was it was me, Logan, and someone else. And Klein and Logan apparently, according to Davis's version of this that Klein told them, they were sharing child sexual abuse materials together. And Klein would also help Logan deal with his burner phones and devices, because Logan was an old man and not good at technology.
So Kagan Klein, a few times a year, out of the kindness of his heart, would meet in person with Logan, apparently, and help him access child sexual abuse materials.
He's like the IT guy for pedophiles, I guess, but somehow there's no actual evidence of any of that, despite the fact that Logan and Klein both had all of their stuff, their property, their devices, everything ripped apart multiple times by authorities, in this case, looking for evidence.
Yes.
But I guess that's all part of the cover-up, right? Again, I'm being sarcastic. So, yeah.
And it's worth noting that Kagan Klein's phone shows that he was in Peru, Indiana, using his phone at the time of the murders.
So, that kind of definitively... So, Kagan Klein is someone who lies frequently. We've discussed this on the show. And he also, there's evidence that he was not in Delphi that day, that he was, in fact, in Peru. So... how he then suddenly gets to, and I think you brought this up, and I want to mention this. So in this version, Ricci Davis has 3 people committing the crime: Logan, Klein, and someone else. So that's interesting. So there's 3 guys stumbling around the woods and the trails that day.
So where are these guys? Because we have plenty of witnesses. We have plenty of people who were on the trails that day, and they see a person fitting Richard Allen's description there. They don't see a mysterious group of 3 other men hanging around.
Or 2 other men. Yeah, it's...
So if this crime was committed by 3 other people, one of whom is Kagan Klein, who is a very large man, you would think he couldn't stay hidden, and we'd have other witnesses corroborating that.
Well, it's one of those things where I feel you know, here's the thing about Kagan Klein. I think there were reasons to investigate Kagan Klein and the Klein lead. I think there were reasons to investigate Ron Logan. Investigators looked strongly, I believe, into both of those leads and did not find anything. And I think personally, we've interacted with Kagan Klein. We've talked to him. We've covered that angle in particular quite extensively. To me, one thing that I always get hung up on, in addition to the phone evidence putting Klein far away from Delphi that day, the thing that I get hung up on is that I believe he tried to do this, but he was lying, obviously. I believe that Kagan Klein is ultimately motivated to benefit Kagan Klein. And if Kagan Klein had actionable information about the killer, he would have been in a position to potentially use that to his advantage when he was talking with law enforcement and facing some significant charges of his own. And he did not do that. Instead, he jerked everybody around. He gave false information that could not be corroborated or that turned out not to be true. And that was it. And I just personally am of the belief that Kagan Klein, had he had something that he could have used, had he had a bargaining chip,
you would have used it.
I think he would have used it. So he didn't. And again, like, people can be irrational, but I just don't see how that would have been something he would have been holding back. And I think with Ron Logan, again, it's like they grilled him hard. They tore apart his life looking into him. He went to jail on a probation violation. He went to prison on a probation violation, I should say. It's not like these different leads were like kind of like dismissed or not taken seriously.
And I want to make another point. If we are being asked to believe that this Ricci Davis lead was like really, really hot and that McClelland and the evil Odinist conspiracy of which he is an agent was determined to hide this from the defense as part of their elaborate scheme to frame Richard Allen, well, they did a very poor job of it because Baldwin and the defense team not only knew about Ricci Davis and his story, but they had access to him. And in fact, Baldwin admits in this filing that he had a meeting with Ricci Davis on March 27th, 2024.
Yes. So, oh my gosh. And this is where things really go off the rails for me. So obviously that means apparently information about Davis did in fact reach the defense because there was a meeting prior to the trial. And one thing that Baldwin notes at some point is that Davis did not tell him everything. That Davis gave him an incomplete story at this time. That Davis was not completely truthful with him, you might say. So, when you meet someone and they're not honest, and then their story changes to get your attention again, and then it benefits you, are you not the least bit skeptical? If I tell you, Kevin, I've got some real information on the latest cereal heist down at the Walmart, and you come to me and I give you, some guy named Joe might have been involved, and then later on, your client gets convicted, and then I'm like, no, it was Joe and this other guy and this, wouldn't you be skeptical at that point?
Yeah.
Like, you weren't honest with me in the first place. Why should I believe you now? But of course, as we know, this defense team will believe literally anything that remotely, in their minds, benefits them, no matter how ridiculous.
They say that supposedly, well, first of all, there's a claim which we will return to in a few minutes when we cover something else. But there is a claim that Ricci Davis sent Prosecutor McClelland as many as 8 letters in the summer and fall of 2024 with this hot information. And these alleged letters never allegedly made it to the defense. So remember that for a second. Baldwin then also explains that the reason that Davis did not be fully honest with him the reason that Davis was not fully honest with him in March of 2024 was that at that time he thought there was a chance Richard Allen might be guilty.
Wow.
And so apparently it wasn't until the trial that convinced him that no, Richard Allen is innocent. So if that's the case, then these letters that he sent to him prior to the trial, do they implicate Alan? Because the whole reason he's not being fully honest with Baldwin in March is, well, I think Richard Allen might be guilty. And then before the trial, he's writing letters to the prosecutor. So that's just a thought I have.
Maybe he's having Alan telepathically communicate with him from Westville. Because, I mean, obviously he's got to get the full triumvirate of Logan, Allen, and Klein. I mean, you can't make this up. And frankly, it wouldn't even surprise me. So he thinks Alan's guilty at first, but then it gets him more attention if he goes full defense, right? So he's got to do that. He's got to pivot. I mean, he's as indecisive as one of these lunatic YouTubers where it's just they're just jumping from theory to theory, and it was Logan, it was Klein,
maybe it was both of them.
Maybe it was both of them. Maybe it was everybody. Maybe I did it. It's like just geez Louise. This is not. I mean, I don't understand how people are taking this seriously. I guess when I'm looking at this is comedic. This is it's not a funny situation. But if it wasn't about the horrible, horrible murder of two girls and the continued nonsense from this defense, it would be almost like a comedy, like it of errors, because it's just like this guy is obviously so full of it and doing anything he can to insert himself into the case, even though it means continuously just changing his story.
You compared it to, I believe, Marvel Endgame.
Yeah, no, this is the Marvel Endgame situation. I'm not a huge superhero person. I did see Marvel Endgame in theaters. I remember. I don't know all the superheroes, but they bring out the superheroes, and then this isn't a spoiler, but they're fighting in a big battle, and then you see all the superheroes, and you're like, oh, there's Captain America, or there's Thor, there's Iron Man, and people in the theater were clapping because they're like, oh, I know that guy. That guy's cool too. This is that for a very stupid segment of the Delphi online following. This is that for the Delphi people who are obsessed with the case, but also happen to possess zero critical thinking faculties and are extremely online, because it's like that. It's like that kind of end game situation where you're like, oh, actually all of them are coming together and are really important. So it's all the theories colliding. So soon we're going to have a theory where it's Logan and Klein are the sort of co-counsels of the Odinist conspiracy in Indiana, and the police have been behind it too all the time, even though, they arrested both of them, and one went to prison for a while for a probation violation, and the other one is serving a very long sentence on CSAM, but naturally the police are involved, and it's all just this elaborate thing. It's like trying to combine all these theories. And what I love about this is that if you know the case and you know the online contingents, as we do, maybe you don't, because maybe you have better things to do with your life, but there is a segment of just vitriolic, just awful people, just really just nuts, who have been screaming about how Ron Logan did it forever. They basically became radicalized because some journalist went on a Discord and shared her theory, and they've been obsessed with that ever since. And they've you could probably show them video of Ron Logan not doing it and being in the wrong place at the time, but they would not believe that. This is their religion. And I think it's going to be really funny to see some of these people adopt this. Oh yeah, Klein must be involved in their stupid theories, because I remember these are the same people who were screaming about how it couldn't be Klein for years. So now they're going to either have to disagree with their defense daddies, or they're going to have to get on board the Klein train, and it will be a fun thing to see what happens with that.
Yeah, that leads me to something else I wanted to say, is that they seem to be taking Ricky Davis's statements about Logan and Kegan Kline and the third man very
it's Harry Lime,
very, very seriously. And so that seems to me to be an implicit recognition and admission that their theories about Odinism were nonsense.
Well, I could have told them that for free a long time ago.
Because if you think it was Ron Logan and Kegan Kline and the third man, then obviously it is not the Odinist. And that would be you seem to be admitting that, well, maybe after all, Judge Gold was correct when she said there was no nexus between your Odinist suspects and this crime. And that Nick McClelland was correct when the answer to the crime did not lie with the Odinist. And so those two people, the two enemies of the defense in their minds, had a better understanding of the crime than they did, because after 2 years of work on this case, they seem to be only now getting to the Logan and Klein theories, and only now seem to be recognizing the obvious point that their Odinism theories were utter nonsense.
Well said, sir. But please stop saying the third man, because every time you do, zither music plays in my head. Okay? Can't have that. So, yeah, I think this is, I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I think you're absolutely right. And I think for people who are taking this seriously, you got to wonder what happened to Odinism, right? I mean, we were told that was a sure thing. And not only was that a sure thing, but that Judge Gull did irreparable damage to this defense by not letting them put on that stupid performance, at trial. But now we're learning, well, I mean, I'm not seeing an Odinism nexus here, but I would not put it past them to try to link that all up, because why not? I mean, we've gone this far. Why not make everything linked up? We're all in the Odin verse now. I mean, I don't, this is just ridiculous and exhausting. I think the defense is intent on, no matter who it is, no matter what they say, just useful idiots will be utilized in and out of prison to try to keep this running and keep them relevant in the case and keep the headlines coming. That is my assessment of this.
I wanted to mention and read point 16, quote, "The defense can produce a witness with admissible evidence that in the months before Mr. Allen's trial, the prosecution received some number of letters from Ricci Davis, and those letters had been given to the people investigating the case," end quote. So they are saying they have somebody who can claim not only that the letters were sent, but that the letters were in fact given to investigators. So produce that person.
Well, I mean, this is the same people, again, who said that Professor Jeff Turco of Purdue could prove that Lieutenant Jerry Holman of the Indiana State Police was a liar who twisted his words and gave the defense some wrong idea in a deposition about what his opinion was. And then, of course, Turco came out in a prosecution filing saying, no, he was accurate. The defense are the people who's twisting around my words. So, I mean, yeah, I will believe this when I see it. There's talk of a video. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure, go ahead.
So they're talking about how Ricci Davis said that he was interviewed and there was a video of it. And basically, well, they need to look at the video. I don't know if it's a video of just a separate interview or a video of his polygraph or both or what. But I think, I mean, they seem to be making a very big deal about that. To me, what's important is that they had access to Davis well before the trial, and they had the ability to interview him, get his information, get what he had to say. I don't think producing or not producing a video matters in this context. Am I wrong? What do you think?
If a video actually exists, I don't even know if a video exists. What's crucial is they knew the story and they had access to the man. This prosecution case has been plagued with technical issues. If a video was done and it was erased, I would feel comfortable saying that I would very much doubt it was done intentionally.
I mean, yeah, obviously, but I mean, how much of a problem would that be for the prosecution then?
If an interview with a proven liar lying was accidentally erased, but the defense still had access to the proven liar.
Yeah. Sounds like it's a really big deal.
Yeah, it's not.
I'm being sarcastic. So, yeah, I don't know. This is low to me. This is just low down nonsense. And I think Ricci Davis seems like he's very, Well, we'll talk more about him later because there's more about him. But I think it's not surprising, but it's striking when you have Baldwin saying basically, well, yeah, this guy lied to me. He covered up stuff because he thought my client was guilty. But, because he thought he was one of the other guys with Logan. But, we should all believe him because, now he's saying something that's helpful to me. I'm sure if Ricky Davis came out before the trial and said, I know Richard Allen did it. Ron Logan told me Richard Allen did it. That Baldwin would say this guy's obviously a liar who's, in prison, has a history of forgery, theft, has a history of drug dealing. All of that would have been reasonable for Baldwin to say, and I would have agreed with him. I would have said we should not be condemning Richard Allen based on the word of a man like this. That's not reasonable. That's not fair. He could be just making this up for attention. It's a high-profile case. People of all walks in and out of prison want to be associated with it for whatever reason because, I don't know, they have sad lives and they want to make themselves seem important. It doesn't have to be for some really complicated reason. It can just be as simple as that. And this is something to do. And the thing is, if the shoe were on the other foot, I would be saying this guy should not be taken seriously as a person going against Richard Allen just because of who he is and his story is changing and he's not credible. And that the same goes for what he's doing now. And that's just the end of story. I don't feel in most instances that inmates make for good witnesses. There are some cases where you might, again, I've said this, but like you might have someone plotting to murder someone in prison and they go to their cellmate, hey, can you hook me up? And then a prosecutor wires up that cellmate. And unless there's a lot of like entrapment going on, I feel like that can be reasonable if they're like, okay, here's the plan. We're going to kill this person. I'm fine with that. But in many cases where there's no corroborating evidence and it's just one person's word against another, I don't care. Unless they're giving specific details that truly only the killer would know, I don't care. And that's obviously not what Ron Logan did here because he got so much information wrong.
Yes. Shall we move on?
Please. So Fox 59 did a report recently on a letter that they received from Ricky Davis, and we'll go into some of that because it's related to some of the things discussed in these filings, right? And, first of all, just the letter itself is written in quite beautiful handwriting, but the words themselves are
inarticulate.
Yes, inarticulate, very confusingly written. So we're doing our best here, but there's things that are not super clear. And
he seems to concede that he failed the lie detector test.
He does seem to implicitly admit that he failed the polygraph examination. It's not super clear. Again, he's inarticulate, but he suggests that the reason he failed it was because he was asked if what Logan told him was the truth. And he's basically like, how could I know that? I don't know.
In my experience, that's not how lie detector tests or polygraph tests work.
No.
You don't ask people about the truth or falsity of something that is outside their knowledge.
Also, you could say, well, you're showing deception on this question, but I don't know if that would make you show deception on everything else and flunk it. I think this guy's just a liar. That's just what I think.
I something else that jumped out to me is back when he was incarcerated with Ron Logan, he says that Logan told him that McClelland was like an old family friend and that McClelland had assured people that he had Ron Logan's back and was basically going to stand up for Ron Logan.
They're going to let him out of prison because he didn't think he did the crime.
Here's my question. If Mr. Davis seriously believes that Prosecutor McClelland is a devoted family friend of Ron Logan and is willing to commit improprieties to protect his good friend Ron Logan, then why would he send Mr. McClelland 7 or 8 letters saying, oh, Ron Logan, your good friend, is guilty? If you think,
I hate to break it to you.
If you think in that situation that the prosecutor is corrupt and is knowingly protecting a guilty man who is his buddy, then I would suggest that you would be more likely to send your letters elsewhere, perhaps to the judge or someone else. So that makes no sense to me. And so that's something that certainly discredits Mr. Davis even further in my eyes.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if the letters he was sending were like just about other things, or like Richard Allen being guilty? Because I feel like
according to Baldwin, Davis believed Richard Allen was guilty up until the trial.
Right. It's just a bunch of like Richard Allen weird fan fiction about like, oh, I heard through a guy who was at Westville and he told me that, and the defense is making a huge deal of this. And this guy just strikes me as a guy who's willing to say anything to be relevant here. And that means switching stories. That means switching focus from Logan to Klein to Allen and back again. I mean, just...
There's also in this letter a discussion of these letters that Davis seemed to... There's a discussion of like 7 letters or so that were, according to Baldwin, sent to McClelland. But in the Lewis letter, Davis says, and I apologize if I'm misreading his handwriting, but he seems to say, McClelland knew this as family communicated that the letters were passed on to McClelland. End quote. So is Davis suggesting that these 7 or 8 letters that he claims to have sent to McClelland were actually sent to family members of his who may or may not have actually passed them on to McClelland?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, how do you read that?
Yeah, that is how I read that. Now, we could be misreading that, or it's possible that, again, it's garbled because this guy is completely unclear in his writing. So could be that, but it definitely raises some questions because obviously there's a huge difference between sending a letter to a prosecutor and, sending a letter to your cousin who assures you that she'll post it and send it to the prosecutor who just forgets about it and lets it sit in a pile in her house. So, one of those things is definitely not anybody else's problem except for Davis's and the defense's. So I just, it's ridiculous. I think it's interesting. I think the letter has quite a petulant tone at times. Davis seems to me there's a genre of person in this case, a type of guy in this case, where it's like, I have credibility issues, but I'm upset because no one takes my information seriously, even though I'm getting key facts wrong. This person could be a YouTuber. It could be a law enforcement officer. It could be just anybody. But it's like this kind of entitlement of like, take me seriously. We demand to be taken seriously. And it's usually just clowns. And that struck me. I think you even see some of that kind of tone and behavior from the defense teams. Like, why is no one taking me seriously even though I'm saying things that are not true?
In the letter, he's like upset because he apparently wanted to wear a wire to try to talk to Logan, and he was told, nah, that's not necessary. And putting a wire on someone and going through all of that takes time and money and resources. And why on earth would you do that when you don't believe the person telling you the story?
There are certain rules about who can be an informant in terms of police investigations, and people who have credibility issues to the point where they've been convicted on forgery charges, I would imagine would, let's just say, not be very high on the list of people you'd even want doing that for you. So even if there had, like, this guy wouldn't have been good for an operation like that, regardless of what this was about. Because he's not credible. They can't use that. You can't just, Kagan Klein is another person where he's lying constantly. You don't want someone like that in any sort of operation like that because you can't believe what they're saying. So, I mean, I don't know. This whole thing, it just, the whininess and just, make it about yourself, basically. That's just what this letter strikes me as. Ron Logan, to be very clear, was never charged in the Delphi murders case. He went to prison on a probation violation. It's very clear that at one time the police were looking at him very strongly. They searched his entire property. They searched his house. I believe there were multiple searches conducted. They found no evidence. He lied to police on the day of the murders. He made a claim, or perhaps the next day, I forget. But he made a claim, oh, I was going to this fish shop with my cousin. And people say, well, that why would you lie about that? Well, I believe it's pretty clear for me, when you look at it, he is somebody who had a history of DUIs. He's on probation for that. And he probably panicked and just made something up to make it clear that he wasn't the one driving, even though he was. I believe that he was lying to cover that up. I don't believe he was lying to cover up a part in the murders. So, he's there on a parole violation. He was never going to be there forever. Any sort of nonsense about how McClelland's like pulling strings to get him out, that doesn't even make any sense. I mean, it was a parole violation. So I don't know. It's just ridiculous. In his letter, Davis claims to feel deeply for, quote, them baby girls and families because, he has children. But,
so he was actually convicted of manufacturing meth within 1,000 feet of a youth center. So that
obviously cares a lot about children.
His deep devotion to the youth of this great land.
Yeah. And
so that's why people have wondered why his sentence is so high. In Indiana, if you're manufacturing meth within 1,000 feet of a youth center, that's considered a Class A felony.
Also, he's very adamant in this letter to the media that he is not out for media attention. Well, I mean, he could have fooled me. He sure seems bound and determined to get media attention for someone who eschews it. So, I don't know. I think this, I think this is unfortunate. I think what the defense is doing is they've set up sort of a process, a pipeline, to that will, I'm sure, continue throughout the case where now unstable people, lunatics, inmates with an agenda, whoever they're feeling that day has a process to, tell us what we want to hear, and we will put it in a legal filing and the press will run with it. And then when you message the press yourself about your, woes and your case and how you were railroaded and how you just want to help and you just, you don't care about the reward money, you just want to help the families, that you'll get that attention, you'll get that spotlight, you can be a little hero. Maybe people on social media will, treat you like a little rock star. And I think that's not good. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think stuff like this has any merit, and I therefore don't feel like it's a good thing. And I think it just confuses the public. And I think, in an ideal world, I would not want to cover Delphi ever again until perhaps the appeal, where we could discuss that, because that would be something that I would be actually interested in. But because this pipeline has been set up, it sort of feels like, it's going to be a long haul. I mean, I think there's some things for people who are seeing media coverage and seeing discussions and seeing filings. There's some things that we could all almost apply ourselves, where you can just kind of almost a checklist a little bit. So this could be helpful to people. Questions to ask yourself when you're reading something or you are looking at a filing or a media story are, one, why was this not brought up at trial? Why wasn't this used before or even pre-trial? What happened? Is it linked to Odinism? If not, why was this not the strategy? Another thing would be, what's not being said in filings? Kevin pointed this out. There were certain elements that the defense alleged in their initial filing. McClelland hit back on that, and then they failed to follow up, such as the video timestamps of the van. They're saying this proves that Brad Weber wasn't there at the right time, and McClelland's like, no, it doesn't. And then the defense is like, they don't have a response to that. So that's important. What is not being said? And then what is the actual evidence other than the defense's assertions? What's the actual evidence or something? So, the defense has their own assertions in this, and then they bring up Ricky Davis as their little ringer from Newcastle. Is that enough? Do we need more than that? I would hope so. And then I would just say when you're dealing with people in a case like this, I wouldn't say this applies to all cases, because I think in most cases, parties are acting with a level of, responsibility and adherence to the facts, But in this case, I think this defense team has a history of maligning McClelland, the judge, law enforcement officers, and many others in ways that later oftentimes prove to be completely false or at least vastly exaggerated. And I would say that it is usually better to take maybe everything they say with a grain of salt, maybe everything they say with a whole pound of salt. Maybe it's better to not take their word for it alone. That's a checklist that everyone can kind of use when assessing this stuff, because I think that's all really important to remember. And a lot of this stuff just seems to be distractions. And it gives the kind of the YouTube crowd, it gives kind of the Reddit crowd, there's obviously good people in both camps, but, there's a lot of, frankly, bad actors in some of these online spaces. It gives them all a lot to spiral about and chew on and freak out about. But that doesn't mean it's relevant. It doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere. And I really don't see this going anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Tell me about that, Kevin. I've been ranting.
I mean, it's like a waste of all of our time. The Ricky Davis story is obvious nonsense. At least we're getting to the point where the obvious nonsense is becoming more and more apparent, quicker and quicker, that it is a nonsense. We wasted over a year on Odinism. Hopefully we won't be wasting that much time on Ricky Davis. His story is not true. Ron Logan did not kill the girls. Kagan Klein was not there that day. He did not kill the girls. The girls were brutally murdered by Richard Allen. And that happened. I thought it was telling that also that these filings came on the anniversary of the day the bodies of the girls were discovered. There was something really uniquely tasteless about that, in my opinion.
It's crass.
It was almost as if they resented the attention being returned to the girls, because earlier I'd seen some media stories highlighting the families, and maybe this was an attempt to get the focus back on Richard Allen and their false claims of his innocence. And again, he's not innocent. He is guilty as charged and guilty as convicted.
Well said. I don't think there's anything else to say. What do you think?
Thanks so much for listening to The Murder Sheet. If you have a tip concerning one of the cases we cover, please email us at murdersheet@gmail.com. If you have actionable information about an unsolved crime, please report it to the appropriate authorities.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon, that's available at www.patreon.com/murdersheet. If you want to tip us a bit of money for records requests, you can do so at www.buymeacoffee.com/murdersheet. We very much appreciate any support.
Special thanks to Kevin Tyler Greenlee, who composed the music for The Murder Sheet, and who you can find on the web at kevintg.com.
If you're looking to talk with other listeners about a case we've covered, you can join the Murder Sheet discussion group on Facebook. We mostly focus our time on research and reporting, so we're not on social media much. We do try to check our email account, but we ask for patience as we often receive a lot of messages. Thanks again for listening.
Day or night, VerboCare is here 24/7 to help make every part of your stay seamless. If anything comes up, or you simply need a little guidance, support is ready whenever you reach out. From the moment you book to the moment you head home, we're here to help things run smoothly. Because a great trip starts with the right support. And hey, a good playlist doesn't hurt either.